Marhaba. Okay, so today's recipe is going to be Freekeh, and this is a recipe that's in my book, Classic Lebanese Cuisine. It's on page 83. It's fire roasted wheat with lamb. That's the name of the recipe in the book. Now, the reason I've chosen this recipe today, as I was reading, I get this newsletter online from Calorie Counter, and the subject was, let's get Freekeh. So that instantly caught my attention, and when I went in, they're now touting this super grain, which the Lebanese people and people in the Middle East have been cooking this for centuries. Probably it started around 200 years ago. So the story behind Freekeh is there was a Middle Eastern village that was under attack about 200 years ago. And as they set fire to the crops, when the fires went out, some of the young wheat was just charred, and they took it, the villagers took this wheat and they rubbed it. Now Freekeh in Arabic means to rub. So they rubbed it and they got this green wheat out and they cracked it and they ended up with Freekeh. It's a fire roasted wheat. Because the Freekeh is so young, when it's fire roasted, it retains more nutrition value. It has 2 times the fiber of quinoa and 3 times the fiber of brown rice. So it's really a very high nutrition grain. As a matter of fact, it's being touted one of the super grains of 2014. So I've chosen this recipe because I think now as the new year enters and we seem to be more focused on nutrition and exercise, I think this is a great recipe. It also has a low glycemic index, making it perfect for people with diabetes. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this recipe. Now in the book it's with lamb or beef. There's an option for chicken. We're going to do it with chicken today. You can also make this recipe completely vegetarian by using water instead of the broth. You can add to it oven roasted potatoes. You can change the flavor with curry powder. You can add cumin. You can add any vegetables that you like, root vegetables. So it's really very versatile, and what you'll learn about Freekeh once you cook it, the main recipe of just preparing it will be whether you use broth or water. But the nice thing is you'll decide what vegetables you'd like to add to it. You can fold garbanzo beans and pearl onions into it, and it becomes a completely vegetarian and vegan meal. So there's lots of ways to enjoy this highly nutritious grain. So the recipe we're going to make today is the Freekeh with chicken, or we call it Freekeh b'Djeaj. Djeaj, the word Djeaj in Arabic means chicken. So what we want to get going first is we want to get our chicken on the fire. So I've already measured 12 cups of water, and we're going to put about 4 teaspoons of salt in here, because this is what we're going to boil our chicken in. So I'm going to just go ahead and get the fire going on that. And we're going to put that on high. So now the chicken, I've already pre-rinsed my chicken. Now I like to, when I get the chicken out of wherever I buy my chicken from, I always like to rinse it in about 6 cups of cold water with 2 tablespoons of vinegar. I use cider vinegar. You can use white vinegar, that's fine. I think that it just sort of refreshes the flavor of the chicken. It's sort of like, just gives it like a little bath, and I just like it that way. So that's sort of like the thing I do with chicken. Now, so what I like to do, now I don't know at your house, we cook a lot of chicken in our house, and my mom even jokes sometimes she starts clucking because she thinks we eat so much chicken. But because we eat so much chicken, we usually don't, the legs, like the legs we use, the breast and everything we use, but I always find that the wings go to waste for us. So what I do is I like to cut them off. So you take the chicken, you put it breast side down, and I just cut, you feel where the joint is moving. So you feel like the ball and joint, and just below the ball, you cut, and I remove the wings. I remove it, and again, I just feel on this other side, and you just feel where the joint, and you cut, and you just make a circle right around that. So here's my chicken, my wingless chicken now. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and put this in our 12 cups of water, and I'm going to wait for that to come to a boil. Now, what I do with these is I just remove, again, if you go to where the joint is, you can cut down, it cuts right through. That is a drumette. And if you cook enough chickens like we do, we cook chicken quite often. So this is the drumettes. And if you want, you can cut this piece as well, and that's a wingette. So what I do is I have a container in my freezer, and I just keep adding these, and I just keep stacking them, and I have 2 different containers. I have one wingette and one drumette. And I just keep them until I get about a dozen or 2 dozens. And then I grill them. And I grill them with any spices. I'll either do some Middle Eastern spices. I can make them Asian style by putting a little sesame oil on them and sesame and soy sauce. So there's lots of things you can do with these that actually turn these into a whole little appetizer later on another day. And then these I just discard. So once the chicken comes to a boil, we're going to go ahead and skim it. Just because there'll be foam that'll come around the edges, we want to skim that. We're going to reduce the heat to medium, and we're going to add a rib of celery, a cup of onion that's diced about 1 inch. We're going to use a half a teaspoon of black peppercorns, a teaspoon of whole allspice, and 1 cinnamon stick. And these are going to be the aromatics for our chicken, and then we'll throw in a bay leaf as well. We'll let that cook for 45 minutes, and then after 45 minutes, we're going to remove that chicken, and we're going to use the broth, and I'm going to show you how to take the chicken apart. Okay, so after 45 minutes, I removed the chicken from the broth, and I put it on this tray, and I let another 30 minutes pass, because you want the chicken to cool enough so you'll be able to handle it, because what we're going to do is we're going to take the bones out of the chicken. So I used this slotted spoon to remove it. Now, I had started with a chicken that's about 4.5 pounds. So that's about the size, 4.5, 5 pounds. That's the size chicken you want to start with. So I just gently remove the skin first. And you really do want to let it cool for about 30 minutes. Otherwise, it's really pretty hot to touch. Even now, it's a little warm. But you don't want to, if you let it cool completely, it'll be very difficult to get it off. So really don't let it cool completely. Just get it to the point where you feel that you're able to work with it. But look how beautiful that whole thing comes right out. That breast comes right off. And now there's a little bone up in here, so I just check for bones. So I break this into a few pieces. This is the tenderloin. I just set that aside. And then I break these big pieces. I usually break it into about 3. Look how nice and tender that is. And we're going to go ahead, and that's how we're going to arrange it later on our dish when we finish. Here's another little extra piece, so I'll take that off. And then the same thing, I always start with the breast, and I just work my way right above the rib cage like that. And look, I remove this whole piece of breast. Again, here's a small bone, remove it. I take out the tenderloin, and then I break this into about 3 more pieces. So, and now the legs, all I do, now these I don't take the bone out. I just remove the skin. I just remove any little pieces of fat. And then I just hold the drumstick bone and I just twist and it comes out. Now I don't want to remove anything else from this because the whole thing will just begin to fall apart. So I just keep this whole like that. And I do the same thing to the other leg and thigh, and I keep them as one piece. Now when people are serving themselves, they can always just go ahead and cut this in half and take either the thigh or the leg, or they might want the whole thing. But I just like the way it looks. That just pops out beautifully. And then I just like the way it looks. I think it's a nice presentation when you're going to put it on your platter. So what I'm going to do with these things, all of this I discard. You can certainly put it back into water and boil it for a couple of hours and make more chicken stock. But we started with 12 cups. We're going to be using 4 cups to cook the freekeh. We're going to have some chicken broth left over. But if you need some for another recipe, then this is good to go ahead and make the stock from. What I'm going to do with this is I'm going to go ahead and put this back in some of the reserved broth, and then we're going to go ahead and make the freekeh. Okay, so now we've got the chicken in the reserved broth, and I've got that sitting aside for when we need it. And I also have my 4.5 cups of reserved broth that we're going to cook our freekeh with. So this is the freekeh. This is the green fire roasted wheat. And you can see that it looks a lot like, this is bulgur wheat. So this is mature bulgur wheat. It's also cracked, but you can see the difference in the colors here. You can cook them the same, but you'll end up with 2 different sort of flavors. This is a sort of a nutty, sort of fire roasted flavor, and this is a deep sort of nutty texture. But they're both delicious. The freekeh just happens to be a little more nutritious because it's a young green wheat. So what we're going to do is we're going to put 2 tablespoons in our pot of olive oil. Now what we want to do is we have 2 cups. This is 2 cups of freekeh. what I like to do is I like to stir fry that a bit with the oil first. Almost like sauteing the freekeh grains. I do that with some rices. I do it with burghul. We call it burghul. I know it probably sounds strange. I know people call it bulgur. It's bulgur wheat. We call it burghul. Okay, so once the grains are all sort of coated with the olive oil, I'm going to go ahead and add, these are 2 cups of, now I use frozen pearl onions. You get them in any grocery store. You can use fresh pearl onions. It's up to you. I just find this to be easier, and I always have a few bags in the freezer on hand. So I go ahead and add those next. Okay, and then all we're going to do is we're going to add our broth. Now we don't need to add any seasonings because the broth had all the seasonings from the chicken. You can later, when it cooks and you taste it, if you feel you need to, increase a little bit of the salt or any of the other spices, for your taste, feel free to do so. Now I'm going to increase the heat to high because we're going to want this to come to a boil. When it comes to a boil, I want it to become to a rolling boil where it just looks like it's engulfed with bubbles. Then we want to reduce the heat to medium-low, cover it, and we're going to cook it for about 25 minutes. Just taste the freekeh at that point to see that it's tender. Then we'll turn off the heat. We'll let it stand for an additional 15-20 minutes, and then we're going to go ahead and platter it. So once this comes to a boil, I'm going to go ahead and reduce the heat, cover it, and let it cook for about 25 minutes or so. And then we'll come back and we'll platter it. Okay, so now our freekeh has finished cooking, so we let it cook for 25 minutes, and then I removed it off the heat and let it stand for another 10 to 15 minutes. So we're just going to go ahead and platter this. There we go. It smells wonderful. There's a sort of a rich, smoky sort of aroma. So we just take this, and look how beautiful it is. It's really like a delicious wheat. I think what you're going to love about this flavor is the smoky sort of flavor that it has. It's almost a meaty sort of texture. And I think what's good about that is then when you want to have it vegetarian, now we prepared this of course with chicken broth, but you could prepare it with water or vegetable broth, and then it would be completely vegetarian and vegan. So once we get the freekeh on the platter, I just like to sort of stay within the border of the platter, and then we're going to put the chicken around the edges. Now we use chicken, it could be lamb. In the book, the recipe it's a lamb with the fire roasted wheat. It's on page 83. You can do beef, and then if you want to do it vegetarian, imagine you could put oven roasted sweet potatoes around this, regular potatoes that are oven roasted with curry powder on them, onions, carrots, peas. There's just an array of different vegetables that you could put around here. So what I like to do is I like to take the chicken, I just sort of start putting it around the edges, like so. And then remember we left the thigh and the leg attached, so I always put those together. I try to lift them up here in such a way that they won't fall apart. There, look, I put one at that end. I think I'll put one down on this end. And then we get all of the chicken around the border. And once again, if you'd like, you could put right here in the middle, you could put any toasted nuts that you wanted, or raisins. Okay, then I like to just take a little bit of cinnamon, because I love the way the cinnamon, the flavor that it sort of is, and I like to put it just on this, the smell is, so I love the smell of the cinnamon on the chicken. I just sort of sprinkle it. And there we go. And then we just take a bit of parsley. Again, I rinsed this yesterday, let it air dry. Just put a few sprigs of parsley here and there. Sort of makes it. There we go. We'll put a couple on this side. Here we go. There we are. We have Freekeh Djeaj, freekeh with chicken. I hope you'll enjoy this recipe and all the recipes on my website, cookingwithkamal.com, as well as the recipes in my cookbook, Classic Lebanese Cuisine. My cookbook has full color photos of each recipe with easy to follow, step-by-step directions. You can purchase my book at all major bookstores in the United States, Amazon.com, international online book venues, and signed copies on my online store shopkamal.com, which come with a complimentary DVD with 41 tutorials such as opening kibbe, rolling dough, and even the best way to cut an onion. For your convenience, we also carry specialty ingredients and equipment at shopkamal.com. Until next time, happy cooking, sahtain, double health.